My name is Anne Iveson and I'm here today at the 8th Symposium for the Collar Institute. And with me is Mounir Guen, who is CEO of MVision. Mounir is no stranger to the Institute. He's been with us almost since the first day the Institute started and has been very helpful and is now on the faculty as an Executive Fellow in the Department of Accounting. Thank you for joining me today, Mounir.
Thank you, Anne.
Or Moose,
Pleasure.
should I call you. So tell me, you have grown up with this industry. You have seen all the changes. So if I was to put you on the spot and say, give me 3 key changes that have affected a GP market, the LP market, or the market in general, what would you say has been the main things that come to your mind?
I think when we look at the GP first in terms of their dynamic, the globalization and the nature of their need to be globalized is something that really becomes quite pronounced. Very few of them are able to sustain businesses within an isolated type environment anymore. And they have to be able to look at different aspects of the positioning of their businesses, which requires different skill sets, which then leads to the second point, which is the skills over the years have really been honed in and really well understood. So that the general partner nowadays, especially some of them are approaching 40 years in terms of their life cycle, understand that they need to have specialists to source, specialists to drive companies, specialists to fix companies, specialists to monitor companies, and to have a whole support structure that they need. Which then leads to the third point, is that the support structures have become absolute necessity. It isn't anymore just having a CFO or finance director with a few assistants. It's huge infrastructures that are reliant on reporting at regulatory levels, at investor levels, and making sure that that transparency and that communication is at the highest that it can be. And that's been the main drivers that have affected that. The net of that is it's taken away the entrepreneurial aspect of these groups as they've institutionalized themselves. Because the investors don't like the 30% volatility aspect that they used to have in the early days. The investors don't mind if they don't get 10Xs every now and then, but they're more consistent return oriented. So that consistency of the return, that consistency of the preservation of capital is absolutely paramount, which then leads to the investors. So the investors are very much focused on a certain hurdle that they're looking to achieve, which is consistent long-term returns with a preservation of capital mindset. And which is very different to the kind of more opportunistic aspect of the earlier days when they got into the industry. The investors are also very interested in the deployment velocity of their capital and the deployment aspect of their capital. So they're trying to figure out how to have fewer relationships to put more money to work, and to put more money to work, direct and indirect, in the relationship with the private equity firm. And then the investors have also changed the nature of their size. Today, we have a very high number of very large investors, and that will only increase in number as we're seeing assets in different countries quadruple or tenfold in size. And the institutions who are currently significant investors get even larger, which will lead to a bifurcation and will create a certain type of general partner that will meet their requirements, but who will be very active and will have a certain dominance in the marketplace, making it a little bit more difficult for smaller funds, where the selection will be even more stringent. And the third aspect to touch on is the regulatory and reporting aspect. With the sheer size of the industry, with the sheer size of the types of investors that are coming into the industry, regulations are just heightening across the world. And it's something that one needs to be very cognizant about if one partakes in that part of the private equity business. And from that perspective, what you see is a lot of change occurring. And only recently, I met with a general partner whose investment professionals match the headcount of the support professionals. And that's the direction it's going to go. So very dramatic changes, and one when one really needs to think. And we're only touching private equity. We could stay here for another half hour to an hour if we wanted to go into the other forms of the alternative assets.
Well, I hope the industry is in a strong situation and will continue to go on for another 10, 20 years.
Much longer than that.
You may well have a comment on that. But thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.